Alrighty, so if you wonder why am I doing a News of the Week episode literally just one day before the beginning of the 2025 MLS regular season, well, that's because this was supposed to be done yesterday. I completely forgot to do it once I finished the review of the game between the Whitecaps and Saprissa, but as the old saying goes, it's better late than never to do a News of the Week episode. And, there was definitely some interesting news that has happened before the season began. And again, just a reminder, just because the season begin doesn't mean there still isn't going to be trade and also transfer that is going to happen. You can still make some transfer and trade until the primary transfer window is going to close, and that I think if I remember it's somewhere around April. So don't expect the fact that teams are going to be done when it comes to building their squad, even when the season has begun. But that being said, the first news we are going to talk about is the fall to spring calendars, because this has been a big talking point for the last couple of months that MLS seems like they're switching it to a fall to spring calendar. It seems like they're matching the same calendar as pretty much all the European League, and there's been a lot of controversy surrounding that, mainly because it's simply not possible to have a fall to spring calendar, especially even with the reported delay winter break. There are going to be some city in the northern part of the U.S. where it's just simply too cold to play soccer, and we saw it even too in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. How it's not just northern city. I mean, there are some city in cold weather like Kansas City and even in Denver, where we saw how those dangerous temperature was in those games, and that this feels like it could be a reality if the league decided to put to the fall to spring season. And we also saw in those games the attendance were pretty bad. I mean, it was almost like a U.S. Open Cup level kind of crowd of how bad the attendance is. But despite that, there's a report saying that some players and coaches seems to be favored in terms of it. Now, obviously, the news headline did say that players and coaches seems to be favored. It's kind of a misleading and kind of a clickbait kind of title, because when you read when I read more to the article, I found out that not every single players and coaches are in favor of this, and the whole reason why they decided to do this is they want to align with the European window, so that way when it comes to the transfer window, it doesn't get a little bit messy, and especially the fact that it's kind of bad timing. The fact that the league is operating on a spring to a fall season, with the way that the transfer window doesn't align, and that you have an unfortunate situation where teams are losing their best player during the summer transfer window, because that's where a lot of European teams are going to sign those players, and are able to give MLS team a big offer to for MLS team to sell those players. But as we've seen before, that as much as teams are going to accept those offer, it can definitely hurt their chances to make it to the playoffs. But again, there's a whole reason why a lot of people don't like this. And again, the weather is obviously going to be a huge factor in terms of you just simply cannot host MLS game in cold weather city. And even with the break that it was proposed, if the season maybe just paused like around January and February, we still will see cities that will have to battle with cold weather situations. So yeah, again, we'll see whether or not if it does happen. It is definitely in discussion. Even Commissioner Don Gabber have mentioned it is something that they might implement in the near future. But until the announcement is made, there's going to be that continued discussion of whether or not if this indeed is a good idea. And if you want my opinion of it, my opinion obviously is not good, because I am not looking forward to if the season does go to fall to spring. That if I want to go to Allianz Field to watch Minnesota United play, and Minnesota is literally one of the coldest city in the winter, I do not want to go to Allianz Field and watch a Minnesota United game in like 10-degree weather. That is just there's that's gonna be brutal, and I'm pretty sure some people that have went to these games, especially some fans of you guys that have went to game that is relatively cold. It's not a fun experience to be, even if you're in the crowd and bundle up with a bunch of people. Now, moving on in terms of talk about some signings and transfer rumors, because we definitely had a couple of signings even as the season is about to begin. And that started off with Philadelphia Union. They acquire Indiana Vassilev from St. Louis for 1 million general allocation money. Now, I feel like this is a bit of an overpay by the Union. I mean, don't get me wrong, Indy Vassilev, he's a very good versatile kind of player for St. Louis. He can play in most positions, but for $1 million general allocation money, I mean, I feel like they probably could have got less on that. Though that being said, I think this is just St. Louis doesn't really want to let go of him, and then maybe they're demanding the fee higher if the Union is going to get him, and the Union basically said yes. And the Union obviously is in a rebuild this season. They're in a transitional year, but at the same time, they are also trying to get the pieces to fast forward this transition to a point where maybe this is not really just a full on transition, maybe just a retool heading into this season. But again, the 1 million general allocation money, I feel like that's a little bit over pay, and that I know nowadays with the cash to player kind of trade, that's why you don't usually see these trade as much, is it because of that rule? But even then, again, I think this is a bit of an overpay, and they probably would have got him for less than that. But nevertheless, the Union of course signed a player, which is always a good thing because the Union fans have always complained about this team not spending the money and not improving the squad. When literally the last couple of months they have done that and have added the pieces. Now the question is whether or not if these pieces will fit this team. That will be to be determined heading into this season. And then the LA Galaxy, they have signed more depth in the forward group. They signed Brazilian forward Mateus Nascimento on loan from Botafogo, and they also give the Sounders 50,000 take general allocation money in discovery rights, and that can also increase depending on performance incentive. I mean, that is just almost peak MLS kind of level of shenanigans, and probably peak Sicko's MLS level kind of shenanigans that the Galaxy have to give the Sounders some discovery rights money. And then on top of that, if the performance incentive is met, then more discovery right gam is going to be there. By the way, speaking of sicko kind of trade, we'll talk about in just a bit that there's also a very MLS sicko kind of trade that happened in these past couple of days as well. But again, this is a good signing for the Galaxy. Obviously, I don't think he's going to start regular minutes. He's pretty much going to play behind Christian Ramirez, and that I think he'll do well with Ramirez having the experience. Maybe use him as a mentor. Maybe he'll also play in a couple of games as well, coming off the bench or stuff. From what I heard, he's a very talented kind of player, and that the last time when the Galaxy decided to sign a young Brazilian player, yeah, that guy was Gabriel Peck, and he only went on to win a newcomer of the year that season. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be anywhere in the level of Gabriel Peck, but he's definitely a guy that could be the future for the Galaxy if he's developed up correctly. Speaking of the Galaxy, they also exercised a buyout of Sean Davis due to cap constraints. So yeah, again, the Galaxy they're still trying to get under the cap, and this is the thing that again I know there are some players on this team. Yoshida have mentioned he is very frustrated with the roster rule with the 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 fact that it feels like MLS is simply punishing the Galaxy because of the success that they had. That now they're pretty much over the cap. Now that being said, yes, I do understand that the cap does need to go up, but at the same time, you could maybe even kind of blame the Galaxy front office. I'm not really seeing this coming with the way that if they were going to get the trade of Sean Davis, they gotta also realize that if they also add some pieces throughout this off season, how is the cap situation is going to be? Because if the cap situation is going to be too big, then yeah, this is going to be a resort in a situation like this where they need to buy out one of their player that literally got, or the fact that Josh Winders tends to do so well in the preseason, as I've heard he has been, that Sean Davis kind of is almost a new runs right now. But there's no doubt that with this buyout, there's going to be a lot of team that's looking to get Sean Davis. I wouldn't be surprised he might go back to Nashville SC in the first place, but he's definitely going to be a hot commodity off the waiver wire and in the free agency market, and I won't be surprised there's going to be a team that's going to snatch him up even in the early part of the season. Now, moving on in the next news. So the Houston Dynamo, they have signed Nico Ladero hours after Orlando City terminated his contract. So again, this is kind of similar to what I expect with Sean Davis, where as soon as Nico Ladero was released, you kind of had a feeling another MLS team is going to give him a chance. Now I know Nico Ladero is not the same Nico Ladero that we saw a couple of years ago. I mean, what he did a couple of years ago with the Sounders is going to go down as one of the best number 10 to ever play in this league. But with the way that, yes, he is getting a little older, he still contribute pretty well, and especially with the fact that I guess this is kind of a short term plan for the Dynamo to hope to see if Nico Ladero have anything left in the tank before they actually decided to get a DP10. I mean, I'm assuming he's gonna get some starting minutes there because the Dynamo, they really haven't find the replacement of Hector Herrera, and again, this definitely doesn't feel like it's a replacement. It's kind of similar to how Orlando City tried to replace one of their 10 last season, and it turns out to be more of a depth piece. I feel like this is going to be the same, at least when the Dynamo does get their 10, and in some way it's kind of almost like a stopgap situation for the Dynamo to get a player that is, he still have something left, and last year, he still produced some respectable number with Orlando City, but definitely nowhere near the level that Nico Ladero once was, and the prime Nico Ladero, where he was not only a goal scoring threat but also just a magician in terms of playmaking for the Seattle Sounders. And then Sporting KC have acquired Andrew Brody off of waivers. Now, this is kind of a surprise, the fact that RSL decided to waive Andrew Brody because he's a very hardworking kind of player. I mean, the quality maybe isn't there to consider to be one of the best fullback in the league, but he's a very hardworking and kind of starting caliber kind of player that RSL decided that no, we're not going to renew him. So Sporting KC said, "Thank you very much. We're going to acquire his service," and not only that, the fact that they were able to not even have to give up too much for it. I think this is definitely a good move for Sporting KC. Now they also waived Alnis Vargas as well today, and he's a guy that playing more as a depth piece in terms of the number 9 spot. Obviously, we'll never forget the goals that he scored against the Seattle Sounders not long ago, but overall, just never really live up to the potential. Well, I wouldn't say potential, but more like just more of a depth piece that they decided to move on so they can open some cap space. Most likely, they'll probably use that cap space to sign the salary of Andrew Brody, who they claim off waivers. And then again, as I was saying about if you want to know one of the most MLS kind of deal that happened this off season, well, this is exactly what it is. I mean, this is a move where we saw the LA Galaxy acquiring 100,000 general allocation money for DC United in exchange for 125,000 general allocation money in 2026. And if that's not a very MLS sicko kind of move and just peak MLS kind of nonsensory at time. Well, I wouldn't say nonsensory is the right word, but just kind of peak MLS kind of trade moment. I don't know what is. I mean, only this league will provide this kind of craziness and kind of just at times doesn't really quite make sense why the Galaxy decide to trade uh more general allocation money than they of course acquired. But hey, that's the magic of GAM and TAM. Oh, I feel like that magic is kind of started to lose because of the player cash trade that is implemented. But you got to remember that rule, you can only use that rule for only a couple player, I think up to 2 players per transfer window. So there could be a case where we could still see a situation where teams have to trade general allocation money to acquire a player, and that rule that was implemented, it encouraged teams to basically still sign players and spend money, but it also still restrict teams that they don't want to go haywire or even just completely loot another team just because they have a lot of cash in exchange. Now, moving on, RSL is also in transfer talk to sell Ilias Manuel after he no-showed in the latest game in the CONCACAF match against Heredino, and this is not a big surprise. He's been kind of a no-show so far in the preseason, and apparently this Ilias Manuel saga has kind of got messy throughout this offseason. So originally, RSL, of course, got him, but Ilias Manuel basically said he does not want to go play for Real Salt Lake, even though there's reports saying that he kind of agree with the deal in the first place, but now he's saying nope. I never said that. I don't want want to go to Real Salt Lake. I want to stay with the New York Red Bulls, and this is where you get into this unfortunate situation where he is clearly in a holdout, and RSL have no choice to sell him on. I feel like this is something we see in other American professional sport. I've always seen this happen in sports like the NFL, where a player specifically said that he doesn't want to go to a place, and the team decided to still trade him anyway, and basically the whole out kind of began as well, and eventually just got really messy. I don't usually see this happen very often in MLS as well, but it is kind of interesting that that is the case, but also just an unfortunate situation for RSL because again, Ilias Manuel would have been a great depth piece for this RSL team, but yeah, unless when we finally figure out the whole situation, yeah, it's kind of fortunate that either they didn't read the sign, the fact that Elias Manuel didn't want to come to this team, and they still made the move against his wish, or the fact that this could be a big indictment on Elias Manuel, and this could be a dangerous thing for Elias Manuel to do, because if we do find out what exactly the full story behind this, and if indeed he actually lied about this, then his value is going to plummet. There's not going to be a lot of team that is looking to trying to get him, because the philosophy of teams trying to sign players is that that when they sign players, they're hoping that player is committed to the team, and if you don't commit it to the team, or you broke the promise, then other teams are going to view that as a contract breach, and that they are unreally looking to trying to sign that player, thinking that, well, if we sign that player, if he pull a fast one on us again, then yeah, we're gonna have an RSL situation like what we have here. Now, DC United, they are close to sign Fidel Barajas from Chivas, so it feels like this is kind of a running jokes. The fact that not only the fact that Chivas is really helping MLS team in terms of signing some good talented player for some money, but they also will sell them back to MLS for a cheap amount of money. I feel like that's a thing that MLS team have tried to take advantage, and also just another example of how many Liga MX fans that I've heard. Chivas is probably one of the worst run team right now in Liga MX, and it's sad to say because Chivas alongside with Club America are the two giants of Liga MX and North American soccer as well. I mean, if you mention Mexican soccer, the two team you can instantly think is Chivas and Club America. And while America is doing really well right now in a very stable full club, Chivas is not that kind of a team right now. There's a lot of mess that is going on with this team, and a lot of bad decisions that they made, and this is another example of it. But DC United are going to be the beneficial of that. Fidel Barajas was really good with RSL, and I can understand in the middle of season why they decided some. The offer is definitely uh, too good for them to pass on, and they decided to get him. But now it seems like I think he hasn't really worked out for Chivas, and I'm also kind of surprised RSL decided not to bring him back, because that would have been a good choice to bring back a guy that they developed in the academy. But at least DC basically said, yeah, we're gonna take him back. Now, FC Cincinnati, they also are close to extend the contract of Lucas Orellano till 2029, and most importantly, they can extend his contract on a TAM deal as well. And what's big about that is that there's been talk the fact that it seems like Lucas Orellano want a DP deal. He wants more money, but now it seems like even though he wants more money in terms of this new contract, it's still going to be a TAM deal. It's a big bonus for the Cincinnati team to not spend more money on him, and also kind of end the saga as well with Lucas Orellano. There's been some holdout saga that the Cincinnati team has to go through. Luckily, they figure out the Yaya Kubo situation as well. He actually did play in the game against Montenegro, but they still couldn't figure out the Lucas Orellano situation. But now it seems like it's been finally figured out. And then of course they figured out the Lucho Acosta situation as well by trading him to FC Dallas. Well, couple of days ago. And yeah, overall, with how messy this offseason has been for Cincinnati, when you look at this team, it seems like it's still going to be a team that is going to be one of the contender in the Eastern Conference. Now, Toronto FC, they are in talk to sign England youth international Zane Mulekis from Arsenal. Now, I don't know too much about this guy other than the fact that this is an example of TFC really focusing on the youth, and that's kind of something that I even said in the season preview that they need to do. This team has a really good youth academy, and even if they don't want to focus that, if they sign some good youth talent overseas as well, especially a guy that is in the England youth international team, one of the best youth international team in the world that is, I think this is going to be a good signing and could be a foundation piece for this team that is in the mix of a deep rebuild right now. Now, Orlando City, there's some bad news about their midfielder Wilder Cartagena. So we have heard about Wilder Cartagena. He's going to be out for a bit, but we now know that when they mean that he's going to be out for a bit, it could be for the season as well. It's seems like I heard there's a report suggesting that not only he's undergoing knee surgery, but he's already on the end of season waiver list. So that is a really tough break for Orlando City and a tough break for Wilder Cartagena as well. Showing a lot of potential and probably could step into that midfield role because Orlando City look like they're trying to move on from Cesar Araujo after all the big offer that is, and now Orlando City will probably hope that not only Cesar Araujo is going to step up even more, but I hope that more teams don't just simply loot him and keep him satisfied because this Wilder Catena injury is kind of what really prevent the Cesar Araujo trade. If he didn't get injured, I think they probably would have sold him off this off season. But now that he's going to be done for the season, unless if Orlando City is looking for depth or maybe for a replacement for Cesar Araujo, they're going to try the best to hold on to him as long as possible. And then Roger Espinoza has officially joined Sporting KC technical staff as a professional development coach. So this is not a big surprise. This is not the first time we've seen some legend from this SKC team that have joined the team as a technical staff, especially on the youth development part. And I always said that I think one day Roger Espinoza could be a head coach in this league, and this is definitely the beginning step of that. Now, moving on, by talk about the other news that might not related to MLS, but still good to mention. So Sarasota, Paradise have decided to join USL League One, and I think they're now the 14 or 15 team that have joined the league. That is now the reason why I mentioned in this is that what's interesting about Sarasota joining the USL League One is that they're not that far away from the IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, and I wonder whether or not they're going to be really focused on that because the IMG Academy produced not only some of the best soccer player in this country, but they produce some of the best professional athletes in this country. A lot of professional athletes around different sports around the country comes from the IMG Academy, so that might be something that they could really be tapped in terms of it. But we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case. And then the Denver NWSL team are launching a vote right now to name the team that is. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Denver NWSL team is going to do. I like the fact that they decided to go with a nickname and not go with a boring name that is. That's one thing that I like about the NWSL, where most NWSL team does have a nickname as their team name, unlike nowadays in MLS with a lot of expansion team. It's just the boring generic European name. And as much as I say that, the last expansion in the NWSL was Bay FC, and yeah, Bay FC is kind of the outlier in terms of it, and this is why I hate the fact that my local NWSL team is called Bay FC because with all the good names that they could have created, that NWSL team that play in the same stadium as the Quakes, they had to create one of the most generic name and just kind of almost follow the same formula as the thing that kind of frustrates me and a lot of MLS fans with these newer teams with just these boring FC and kind of city generic kind of name. But good on Denver, the fact that they have decided to create a name. And I also wonder, will they just name themselves Denver or they'll just name Colorado? Because apparently in the Denver area, when you look at all their other sports team, they're either named after Denver or Colorado, and obviously the MLS team is named after the states itself. Now, DC United, they also want to expand Audi Field and add a new roof there. So if you ever seen Audi Field, they do have a partial roof on the sideline that is, but the end zone area, including the supporter section, is not actually covered in roof. And I do think that when I look at Audi Field, well, at first when it was open, it was definitely a it's definitely a beautiful soccer stadium. I feel like as the year goes along, the stadium kind of looks started to look a low age. I mean, that being said, it is still much better compared to when they used to play at RFK. I mean, I think every DC United fans are happy to call Audi Field their home compared to RFK when that stadium was literally falling apart when DC was playing all those years. But there's no doubt that DC realized that their stadium is maybe starting to date a little bit. This is a great way for them to keep it fresh and keep expanding. And this also kind of makes me wonder whether or not if the San Jose Earthquakes are going to do the same thing. And the reason why I immediately talk about the Quakes is because for a long time I really want them to renovate and just the biggest thing that I feel like the Quakes need to finish the renovation of PayPal Park, just close off that end where Labina is the outdoor bar. I just don't like the fact that it's a free-sided stadium. It's kind of a little reminiscent of those MLS 1.0 and 2.0 soccer specific stadium that is, and also it just kind of kills the atmosphere as well because PayPal Park could have a good atmosphere if they just close that end and not let the atmosphere just flow out because of it. Now it's going to be tricky to do so because they want to keep that bar being there, and in order to do that, I mean, it's going to be very tricky for them to figure it out. But at the same time, that stadium like Audi Field, it feels like it needs to have a bit of a remodel. And while DC has done a good job to do so, I don't know about this front office, especially of who is owning this team. That is refusing to not only spend on player talent for the most part, but also trying to keep keep PayPal Park still one of the better soccer specific stadium in the league. And then lastly, MLS have announced that they are going to be introducing the rule change that only captains can talk to the referee when involving controversy. Now, this is a rule that has already been implemented in the Euros, and they also implemented in the Champions League as well. And the big reason with this rule is that referees are for a long time they've been very frustrated with the amount of time that they've been surrounding by players and stuff like that. And with implementing this rule, it at least protect the referee to not always getting completely harassed by players alike. And I can understand. I mean, being a referee in any professional league has got to be tough. This is why there's been a shortage of referee because in any game, it doesn't even matter if it's MLS. I've seen it even in the local level with all the groundhog that I have, where the referee are getting constantly bombarded and constantly getting yelled at, and I at times kind of feel bad for them because unlike these MLS referee, some of these lower league referee, they're only earning very few money and barely any living paycheck throughout the game, and they're kind of getting the same abusive treatment, if not maybe even worse abusive treatment in some games compared to some of these professional referee in these big leagues. But this at least will, of course, will try to help that. Though I will say this, I wonder what will MLS basically implement this either in the correct way or implement it consistently, because as what we have seen with the mass confrontation policy that MLS has implemented, it's been very inconsistent of how they implement it. There's been times where they've been implemented and really lay down the law, and then there are times where they don't really do so, and especially if it's one of the bigger team, I've noticed that that's kind of the case. So I wonder if that's going to be the same case. I mean, that's going to be the same case. That's going to frustrate a lot of fans because again, at the end of the day, when you implement a rule like that, it has to be implemented at least with some sort of consistency, and there should be no favoritism toward the bigger team. And we'll see whether or not if that, of course, is going to be the case once they do implement this rule. Well, there you have it. That is pretty much it for this news of the week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of all of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below as always. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.